had the good fortune to meet Dolores in 1971, and Dolores and another woman, Gail Pertz, and myself, we were the original founders of Kent Gay Liberation Front. So in order to kind of understand some of the things I'm going to be saying, you have to go back in time a little bit, because being a homosexual in Ohio in 1969, 1970 is not even close to what you might imagine being gay on this campus is today. So when we first started, I think Dolores, who never met a civil right she didn't support, by the way, Dolores was doing a picket, and I met her at a picket because I met very few civil rights I don't support or failed to do something about if I could. So we were picketing, I think, against something that was going on in Cambodia, I believe. Can't remember the specifics. And then we also met another person called Gail Pertz, who we had kind of like a vibe that she might share some similar interests with us. And she was thinking about handing out a leaflet, and Dolores and I had already been discussing that we needed something at Kent that dealt with our personal lives, because we'd always spent so much time in other movements. It's about time we did something for us, basically, but not so much in a, more in a, if we could do anything to change the way things are, we should be doing it, in addition to what we're doing in these other kinds of movements. So Dolores and I talked, and Gail talked, and we decided, well, let's do it. So all we need to do is hand out a leaflet and have a meeting. Then the Student Center didn't exist. We were at the Hub, which was where the old ROTC building shell was at that time, and right next to Lowry Hall. That was where we first met. We handed out the leaflets, and then we recognized that in order for us to be successful, we had to reach out to the gay community in Ohio also. So we leafleted the bars. We went to the bars. Now remember, this is Dolores, who at that point was just beginning to develop some of her openness in the gay community and making some contacts through some of us who drug her places she probably never would have gone if it hadn't been for us. So we decided we had to go to the gay community. So we went to Canton, we went to Akron, we went to Youngstown. At that time, some of the bars we went to, you had to knock at the door, and then they did a little thingy. Now this is in Canton, Ohio, I'm talking about. They did a little thingy, they looked at you, they said, tell us, name 3 gay bars. If you knew 3 gay bars' names, they would let you in. So basically, I took Dolores to some of these places, and what we would do is we would explain to people there that we were going to be starting something at Kent, and we expected their support. Because you have to remember, at that time, the gay bar was the center of where you could go and be open. Well, Dolores and I had a dream a little bit about making the campus the place where you could go and be open and not have any issues with that. So Dolores and I and Gail did our little thing there in the gay community, and then our leafleting here on campus. We had the meeting, and at the very first meeting, I think 70 people, I think is what the history shows, 70 people showed up. Now in that group of people that showed up, there were quite a few people who were gay, obviously, and there were people who supported us because they knew that we supported their particular issue. There were people there from the American Indian Rights organization that was on campus, from all the various left groups that were on campus, and that time there were quite a few of them. So they showed up, plus we got some people from the community. We have a woman from Ravenna who became a very close friend of Dolores's, Janie Dickerhoff, who had never met a lesbian before. And she came because she saw our leaflet. She knew what her preference was, but she didn't know where to meet anybody. So our meetings had both members of the community and students. And then we decided that our first big event would be to call a dance in downtown Kent, coming out dance. So we planned that for December. Well, as you might guess, doing this kind of stuff came to the attention of certain people. We got a phone, Dolores actually got a phone call from Dr. Olds, I think, who was president at that time, and he basically wanted to have a meeting with Dolores and I to talk about how we should, in his phrase, how we should behave on campus. Now, we humored him. We went under his terms. Okay, so we went and met with him, and he was trying to talk to Dolores and I. He said, you know what? I will support you folks, but here's what you've got to do. You can't advertise yourself. We don't want anything in the newspaper, the student newspaper. We don't want you to have a phone quite yet. We don't want you to be public in very many ways. And what he said was that would be a little bit harmful to Kent State because it was after May 4th, and they didn't want any kind of publicity. So he wanted Dolores and I to promise. So I let Dolores handle that one because she was a little bit more low key, but able to zap it to somebody who challenged her right. And she did that. And she basically set Dr. Old straight about that he had no understanding what would be the point of organizing a group to support your rights if you didn't want to tell anybody who you were and you existed. So she set him straight on that issue. She was very good because when she talked, she came off like, I always say this and she didn't like it sometimes, she comes off like your grandmother. At that age, she was not like 80, but she came off like your knowing grandmother, that you could feel comfortable in what she said. And that was very, very disarming of people who were homophobic or in some way anti-gay. Very hard to confront her in the same way that you might confront me. So Dolores was able to put people at ease and over some of these, and early on we had to confront a lot of people. And I'll give you some examples of who Dolores confronted and you get an idea. Okay, we confronted, and I won't mention their names, but because I can't remember them, I'm getting old. So anyhow, we confronted a professor in the phys ed department who was anti-gay, and basically what happened was people would come to us on the side. So some of the women from the phys ed department came to Dolores and said, we have a real problem. We have a person who is anti-gay is on the faculty, and we don't know exactly how to deal with that. So we're doing things like dressing in such a way that we wouldn't dress because we don't want her to think that we're a lesbian and that we would get hassled in our department and so forth. So of course Dolores says, well, we'll have to take her low-key manner of saying things. She said, well, we're going to have a talk with somebody in the phys ed department about this. So, and we need to have a meeting. So I said, yeah, okay, let's try to set up a meeting. So we attempted to set up a meeting, and of course the professor in the department in question wouldn't meet with us. So we said, okay, and so Dolores and I basically let it be known that we would pick it outside her office, okay, the two of us. And we would hold our signs, and if you didn't want to talk to us. Well, the next day she decided to talk to us. And so that was the kind of activism that we tried to do, sit down and talk, one-on-one. Dr. Olds attempted to convince us. He said, we'll give you space. We'll give you a place in the student center. But it won't be in the main student center. It'll be in that little office that was connected to Stouffer Hall. Some of you may know the bit between the two, Werner and Stouffer. Well, you guys can go in there. And we can't give you a phone. And he tried to bargain with us. And of course, Dolores set him straight on that one. She had a way of saying, what point would it be if we were not able to be open about who we are, because we're not afraid of who we are. Apparently, Dr. Olds, you are. I'll never forget the way she worded that with him. And she had a way of coming across like your non-threatening, I don't want to say grandmother, but your non-threatening aunt, okay? She had a way of coming across like that when she was dealing with putting forward a defense of our rights. Then she and I felt early on that anybody who spoke for the organization had to declare their sexuality. We didn't want anybody who was kind of in the closet to be a spokesperson for us. You had to be out. And we recognized very early on, and Dolores was a leader in this part of what we were doing, we recognized that we had to talk to as many people and be as open and out as we could. So Dolores and I gave, I think the first year and a half, we spoke to over 100 classes.